Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalkradio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
Oh, man. Guys, we're going to go into another commercial. We'll be right back.
A small hollow in North Carolina. There have been several Bigfoot sightings.
Hunters may need to be on the lookout for something other than deer when they hit the woods this week.
He hadn't been spotted recently, but according to these pictures, the legendary Mothman is back.
The number of UFO sightings is soaring tenfold over the past 25 years.
Now, she's not talking about people. She is talking about ghosts hanging around what some say is a real-life haunted house.
You're listening to Paratalk Radio with Ted Wolf and Psychic Cindy on paratalkradio.com, a member of the WLFE digital broadcast family. Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and is intended for listeners over 16. The topics, views, and opinions expressed on our show may not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Paratalk Radio, our hosts, or our sponsors. Now, live from J-Wolf Production Studio in Ontario, New York, here are your hosts, Ted and Cindy.
Hello, everybody. What an interesting evening this is going to be. We got the studios full of people being loud today. We've got the producer running late. We got Cindy running late. It's going to be one of those nights, I think, but I'm here and I'm excited about tonight's show, and I hope you guys are too. You guys know that I'm a big Bigfoot fan. And it's one of those things that, if you're going to believe in something, well, let me put it this way. You know how I feel. I always say I would like to believe that it's real. And that's normally how I approach the whole thing when it comes to Bigfoot. So real quick, let me go into this. Hello, Joe Chase. He says, hello, my friends from Rochester, Ted and Miss Paratalk Radio, hosted by Ted Wolf and Psychic Cindy. Yes, except Psychic Cindy is MIA right now. Also, Chanel Fletcher, hello. Michelle Millens, hello. Dominic Santaserio, hello. Thomas, hello. Tom. Barry Martz, Carl Mitchell, Patricia, or Mom Santaserio, shall I say. That is Dom's mom. Robert White and Bob Burnell, Galvin. Let's see. We got you all up there. What's up? Dominic says, well, right now, what's up is the sky. No, just kidding. What's up is my topic tonight, Bigfoot. We just spent a month on, UFOs and aliens. And, guys, it just made sense that we connected with Bigfoot after, because of all the stuff that we've been hearing and talking to. And Cindy, has gotten a lot of these people, being agreeing with her, I guess is the best way to put it, about this whole thing with Bigfoot and UFOs and they're connected and so on and so forth. But you guys know how I feel. I think if anything, if it's real, it's an animal or like us, and I don't think it's an alien, but who knows, a lot of other people think so. So, and if you haven't noticed, hello, Amber, we are at the studio tonight. We're only able to come here a couple times a month right now, but we're here just waiting on her. So now that I said hello to everybody, and I have the gentleman that we're going to interview, Mr. Eric Altman, is in the back room in the little green room waiting for us patiently. He's been very, very patient. I'm just going to read a little bit here of his bio for you. He is from Pennsylvania, first off. He's a PA or Pennsylvania Bigfoot Researcher. Eric Altman is a longtime investigator specializing in researching the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomena with a combined 41 years of study and 24 years field research of that phenomenon. He is well respected in the field I can't even talk today. He is a well-respected field researcher. Wow. Contributed author, longtime director of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, director and founder of the Pennsylvania Cryptozoology Society. Eric was also the host and co-founder of Beyond the Edge Radio. And I know that some of you have heard that before because I myself have. Eric was also, back to that. I'm losing my track here just a little bit. I can't see it without my glasses. Beyond the Edge Radio is what we were talking about, a live weekly radio program covering a variety of paranormal and fringe topics from 1997 to 2019. Eric now co-hosts the monthly video cast Macabre Moments with host Marie Samuels, which is very cool. But, I don't want to keep him back there waiting. And without my glasses, it's kind of hard to, see all this anyway. So I think it's easier. Let's just bring him up here and let's start chatting. Let's get into the rat killing, as John Wayne says, and go from there. All right. Welcome, Eric, to the show. Hello,
Hey.
Eric.
Good evening, Ted. How you doing?
I've been better. It seems like today is the day that everything is just kind of going where it wants to go. It happens. But, tonight's the night. I guess it's happening for sure. So I'm very excited about you being here because I am a Bigfoot fan. And we know, well, here in New York, we've had a lot of sightings of Bigfoot as well, basically up in Whitehall, New York. We do have some that kind of straggler, it's probably about 30 minutes from me, like Nunday, New York, Short Track, New York. Very still open areas, very limited human interaction in some of these places, farmland, stuff like that. So there has been reported cases there as well. And I myself, I've always been infatuated with them. Is that how you got involved, with just being infatuated with the creature itself, or?
My interest in the Bigfoot phenomenon goes back to when I was about 10 years old. I grew up a fan of monster movies and science fiction movies, the really bad ones, if you remember them, as they call them, B movies. And a couple of movies I saw as a very young kid, Creature from Black Lake and Legend of Boggy Creek.
Yeah,
they kind of drifted my attention from the sci-fi horror movie genre, monster movie genre, over to the possibility that monsters may really exist. And I started studying books at that age, going to the public library, the middle school library, and finding anything I could find on the subject, and was actually really surprised to find that my home state has quite a number of sightings reported dating well back into the early 1800s. And my hometown of Greensburg, Pennsylvania, I found countless newspaper articles about sightings that took place mere miles from where I grew up. And that to me was just the hook that kind of got set. And from that point, I've been studying the subject, researching it, investigating it for a long, long time.
Right. That's awesome. I mean, up here, I've been in the paranormal a long time. And my first experience was I was really, really young, 7 or 8 years old. And, but I was always attracted to the monsters, like the some of those B-rated movies, the things, what was it, the Lizard Man and stuff like that. And I always ask myself the same question. It's like, what if they were real? How would that change, as a society, as a perspective, as, moving forward? And I love that there's so many people out there trying to do this. And, it was funny. Don Black put up there, he said, hide and go seek champion. And it's true though. I mean, do you know how long the research for Bigfoot has actually been going on? It's got to be, what, 50, 60 years, 70 years?
Yeah, and surprisingly, that's still considered the infancy stage of research. We've only been at this about half a century.
Yeah.
And although our first ancestors, our Native American counterparts, have been familiar with this for a long, long time, if not hundreds of years. And there are quite a number of reports that here in Pennsylvania, like I said, they go back to the 1800s. And there's legends and lore in native tales. They grew up with these animals. They were sharing the forest with these animals. And some were revered, some were treated as other tribes of the forest. So
right.
The legends go back a long, long time. As a modern man, we've been studying it about 50 years. The term Bigfoot's only been popular, or I should say known. The actual term Bigfoot has been known for probably about, I want to say, maybe 60 years, 50 or 60 years. It was coined in 1958, October of 1958, in Humboldt County in Northern California. There was a road construction foreman by the name of Jerry Crew, and they were building roads, logging roads, to go back and log areas in Bluff Creek, California. And they would go home on the weekends and leave their heavy machinery and oil drums, gasoline drums in the forest that powered this machinery. They come back on Monday to start work again, and they'd find these giant human-like footprints all around their heavy moving equipment. And of course, some of the construction crew that was hired were Native Americans, and they were familiar with the legends and lore of this hairy wild man of the forest. But Jerry Crew thought it probably a wise idea to take plaster of Paris and make some casts. And he took those casts to the Humboldt Times newspaper in October 6th of 1958 and presented it to the newspaper reporter. And he came up with the term Bigfoot, obviously by the size of the footprint cast.
Right.
And that stuck. And for about 60 years now, we've known the term of Bigfoot because of that one incident that happened.
Right.
But before that, they were known as wild men, hairy men of the forest, Sasquatch, Oma.
I think every indigenous culture had a name for it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Over 200 tribes in the United States had names for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. But there's actually, we had spoke to, it was like a year ago, we spoke to a gentleman in Canada that lives on an indigenous area with the Indians and stuff. And they protect them. They actually don't allow, people up in there and stuff like that. And they truly respect the creature. You know what I mean? It's amazing. He talked to us about all that stuff, and he had been researching it for about 30, 40 years too. I'll tell you, I mean, I don't care what anybody says, it's a great subject. It's a very interesting subject because for me, what makes us think that we're it? You know what I mean? It's kind of like where I go with the whole alien factor. It's like, what makes us think that we're the only thing that has any intelligence that's around here?
Right.
I mean, what is it? I'm trying to think of the word and it's gone. But we already know that man has developed from different, in the human development, with all those different types of steps that we have taken to evolve. So why not? I mean, why couldn't there be something else out there that just hasn't gotten to the point where we are, and maybe it's because they were, I don't know, maybe they were just like what Don was saying, they were just hidden well, or they don't have the, I I don't know, smarts for technology to advance, I guess. I don't know, but from what I've read and what I understand is that they're not dumb creatures. They really do have intelligence about them, and one shows you the fact that they can hide so well. Is that a
Right.
natural instinct? Probably, but at the same time, you have to believe that they have had to pass this thing down from generation to generation, because you can't believe it's one creature that everybody's seeing across the US, you know what I mean? So it's definitely got to be some type of intelligence there and a way for them to pass down knowledge, some type of education between the two of them, or the family, or whatever you want to call it. So
Oh, they're highly intelligent creatures, that much we've deciphered from the eyewitness reports, and you're right. They would have to have some sort of intelligence, a higher level of intelligence, to remain elusive as long as they have, and to
Right.
avoid capture and avoid being killed by man and put on display at the zoo. So they are very well aware of what we do and what we're capable of, and I consider that an intelligence. They stay away from us,
Right.
and they remain hidden, and very elusive. There are people that have reported them using very antiquated tools, whether it be clubs or stones, to kill animals or to hunt with, and that shows the sign of intelligence as well. So, my personal opinion is they're more intelligent than a common typical animal like a deer or bear,
Mhm.
but yet they don't border on human intelligence, at least not that we're aware of.
Right. But there's, like I said, though, I do believe there's got to be some way. I mean, we know that even your normal animal, as we're talking about, like a wolf or a deer or whatever, they have their the way they pass things on to their children, to their young. You know what I mean? They show them certain things or teach them certain things, and I believe that that's what's happened there when it comes to the Bigfoot population. Is there is some type of intelligence to share what they know, and one of them, I think, and you brought up, was the big one, is humans. I mean, they know what we're capable of. We destroy pretty much everything,
Yeah.
and they're probably scared shitless of us. Excuse my French, but I mean, think about what we've taken. I mean, I drove down a road just the other day that used to be full of woods, and whoever owned the property just went and knocked all the woods down, to put up houses. And if I was an animal that lived there, I'd be like, Jesus, these humans are jerks. It's one of those things.
Right.
I do want to put up Don Black, man. You got some good comments going on here already. He made a comment and said that they live in family groups and have their own language, homies. Is that true?
Well, it's speculated that they have their own language. I mean, obviously, we have not been able to study them in their own natural environment and habitat to really learn if they truly have their own language. But there have been several recordings over the decades captured that it's very possible Sasquatch communicating with each other. There's a variety of different speculations on how they communicate with each other and what they use. So it is very possible that they have their own language that they're able to talk to each other with.
Well, yeah, because I think wasn't it Lauren Coleman or one of those guys that actually recorded sounds of
Ron Moorhead did.
Ron Moorhead, that's it. Thank
Mhm.
you for correcting me. Yeah, it actually, captured sounds of them, and which is amazing. You know what I mean? I'm not, in the field of research for Bigfoot that much. I mean, yes, it falls within underneath our realm here, but I've never been on a Bigfoot research expedition. I'd like to experience that myself, but just knowing I am a tracker by trade with my family for hunting over the years, so I learned how to do that stuff. So I do notice different sounds. I know what a fox sounds like, or a deer. You know what I mean? So it has to be kind of cool, I guess, to be able to sit there and listen to that stuff, or be out in the woods late at night and hear sounds that you've never heard before. At the same time, I think, you hear something like a Bigfoot, I think it'd be kind of freaky at the same time. Have you yourself experienced anything like that?
Oh, I've heard lots of strange sounds in the forest over the decades that I've been doing this. Yeah, there's so many animals that make so many different sounds that a lot of them we have captured and cataloged, and they're available on the internet for people to go and listen to. And there's a lot of sounds that we haven't captured, or bears make weird sounds, raccoons make weird sounds. So moose, yeah, there's so many different animals that make weird sounds, and just because you can't identify it doesn't necessarily mean it's a Bigfoot. But I have heard some very unusual and strange sounds in the forest all throughout the United States that I'm not able to easily recognize or identify. Whether or not it was a Bigfoot, I have no idea, because I didn't see the creature make the sound. But I have heard some really strange things over the years that'll make your hair stand on end.
Yeah. And that's my, like, the first time I ever heard a fisher cat.
Yeah.
Whoa. I mean, I was young when I heard that. I'm like, what is that? So, I mean, there are things out there that we don't know every sound that these creatures make. I mean, and if they have the vocal cords or the ability to make sounds like humans do, I mean, we're able to copy pretty much anything. It would be amazing, if they had that would be cool. And they could definitely throw us off with just sounds.
Well, there are researchers who do speculate and do believe that they're able to mimic other animals as well as humans. They're able to recreate sounds that are very close to what the actual animal or even a person does. And I've heard weird sounds in the forest like that as well. And you almost have to take a step back and think, okay, was that really an owl that I'm hearing, or something mimicking an owl?
Right. I mean, we have to think about our own evolution. The only thing that we did, I mean, if you look at the indigenous population, and when back in the day, I mean, they were mimicking coyotes and crow and all that stuff as well. So, why not? Why couldn't they? I mean, they live in the woods where they hear all these creatures all the time. So for them to have the capability of creating the same noise or replicating that just makes sense to me. Right?
Yeah. And it's more than likely they do have that ability to mimic other animals. And maybe they're using it in hunting, when they're trying to trick an animal to think there's a deer over there. So the deer comes over to look, and they can ambush the deer, whatever they're using it for. I'm sure that they've adapted to other animals' sounds and using and mimicking those sounds for their benefit, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Did I put those in there right for you? Can you see those?
Yep.
I did put them in right. Okay, cool.
Very good. Thanks.
No, I wanted to make sure I had it right. So, yeah, one of the things that's always bothered me about the whole, like, I watched the documentaries on TV once in a while, like Travel has them and stuff like that, but not Travel. Is it Travel? One of those. And they're always talking about height and weight about these creatures. And I'll tell you, some of them are really extreme. It's, it's kind of scary for, a single individual living in a home by themselves, a 9-foot creature. I mean, is that like an average, do you think? Or is it normally a normal height, like 6 or 7 feet?
Well, the average that we've gathered based on eyewitness testimony, the data supports a 7.5 to 8 foot tall creature. That's the average height. Wow. There are, like humans vary in size and weight and stature. There are obviously going to be much taller individuals and much shorter individuals. We've had reports of creatures seen that are 4 or 5 feet tall. And we've also had documented reports of people seeing them that claim are 12 or 13 feet tall. That's an awfully tall creature, if in fact that's the height. But let's be honest here. They're making guesstimates when they see these creatures. They're guessing that it was that high. Obviously, not somebody's going to run up with a tape measure next to a Bigfoot and say, "Hold still for a second. Let me take your pant size."
That would be great, right?
Yeah, but seriously, the average height is anywhere from 7, maybe 8 feet at most, and some large alpha males they assume can get as high as 12 feet based on the eyewitness testimony. A lot of the information that we have about these creatures are based on solely eyewitness testimony or really bad blurry pictures or photographs that people have taken.
Yeah. And we know what that's like. I mean, the old saying, the guy caught a fish this big, when he gets home and he tells his wife it's actually this big, And, interpretation of photos and video and stuff has always been hard to decipher. And being in the paranormal field, I mean, I deal with that stuff on a daily basis, it's just, and the same with like pareidolia and all this other stuff. It's like they claim to see certain things, but unless they have something to show us, we don't really know. And you just have to take that eyewitness account and write it down and say, okay, this is what they're telling me.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's, way out there, but other times you just have to kind of, when you're collecting data, especially eyewitness accounts, there does become a pattern,
Right.
and I believe, like what you were saying, that's where they're coming up with the 7.5 to 8 foot, is because of the pattern, the eyewitness accounts of how many people have seen one about this size.
Exactly.
And that's good. Now, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but because I have my notes here, but I'm really interested in. I had spoke to Matt Moneymaker and Cliff Barrickman a while back, and we were talking about Bigfoot and migration. Do you think there's a connection between the two?
Personally, I don't. I think they
Okay.
have a home range like a bear does, except it might be a little bit larger than a bear, and they stick to that home range. And the reason they stayed in that home range is water supply, food source, and ample cover. And as long as they have those three things to keep them protected, fed, and watered, they're going to stay where they're at. And if humans start to encroach or start to move into their territory, then yes, they may move to a different area. But I don't think they migrate at all. I think they remain in the same areas. And I think that they just move around a small territory, much like a bear's home range.
Right. And that does make sense. I mean, for me though, looking at it as an animal side, as a perspective, as an animal, I I don't think they're anything like a bird. I don't think they migrate. I think they pretty much stay where they were born. That's
Yeah.
my opinion anyways. I want to come back here. Males seem to be bigger, says Don. Do we have any information to say that that's probably true?
Well, based on the eyewitness data, that seems to be the trend, is that the males seem to be taller and a little more broad-shouldered and bigger girth than the females do.
Well, sort of like the males for like the human population.
Sure.
Males are, normally bigger anyways, muscle tone, and all that stuff. So yeah, I would think so too. Um, what is this? Anything that can knock down a tree, I'm making friends with. That's probably a smart idea. Donna's also saying they have a wide territory. They usually stay near water and hunt for food. So it's exactly what you said. I'm not
Right.
sure who Don Black is, but he's right on the money with you. That's cool. Now he is also saying they mark they mark boundaries between family groups. Can you enlighten us on that? Do you have any information on that?
Well, for many years, there's been speculation amongst researchers that they make something called stick stackings or territorial markers made of sticks, like teepee formations or branches intricately intertwined with each other. And it's also, we really don't know what they mean, if they
Right.
mean anything at all. It could
Right.
be Boy Scouts building a lean-to. It could be anybody doing it. As far as I know, on record, there have been very few, if any, reports of Bigfoot witnessed building these structures. But researchers seem to think that these structures are meant as territorial markings to kind of tell one family or another, even the humans, that this is our territory, this is our turf, stay out. Some researchers think that it marks directional findings, like much what the Native Americans did. They marked trails
Right.
before the civilized modern man came to the United States and all that. That's what some people speculate they might do, or even marking a food plot or a food source, an area ample in deer or vegetation. We don't know exactly what they mean. There's a variety of different speculations on what the tree markers and territorial markers are. But some people do suspect that they use that as a boundary marker saying, hey, this is our turf, stay out. And if you want any trouble from us, then yeah, come on over and we'll show you.
Well, that kind of brings up the thought, the rock throwing, like that's kind of like a warning. Hey, you're too close, right?
Well, again, it's a speculation amongst Bigfoot researchers
Okay.
that we do know that primates, especially chimpanzees, if they're treed by a tiger or a predatory animal, that they will throw sticks and rocks at the predator to get it to go away, to drive
Right.
it off.
Which makes
And
sense.
because of that primate behavior, there are researchers who speculate that's what Bigfoot does, when humans get too close. They start throwing rocks, not intentionally to hurt them or to kill them, but just to get them to leave. You know, you're encroaching on us, you may be encroaching on food or young or territory. So we're going to throw some big rocks at you to intimidate you, to get you out of our area.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Now, I believe, with the little bit of research that I've done, is that the majority of the research for the Bigfoot investigations and stuff, they pretty much, how do I want to say this? They pretty much believe that they're similar to apes, right? So they kind of base their theories on that. So
yeah, they share some of the same primate behaviors. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I had that right. So, yeah. Do you know if they go outside that? Because they are talking about in the chat room, and we've had the discussion here quite a few times where people have asked, like, where do they come from, and they think they're interdimensional and stuff like that. Real quick, what's your belief? Do you think it's just a creature that's evolved like we did? I mean, that's been here forever and just growing and evolving? You don't think it actually came from somewhere? Or, I mean, I know this is pure your opinion. This is not a, so I'm just trying to figure out what Eric thinks.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what to think at this point, because there's a variety, like with the behavioral, with their food sources, with what we know about this creature is all based on eyewitness testimony.
Right.
Now, the majority of eyewitness testimony tells us that this is some undiscovered primate or animal that we haven't discovered yet. It's simply an animal, nothing more. But there are cases over the years, and even here in my home state, that have seemed to tie the Bigfoot into the paranormal realm, whether it be with people seeing the Bigfoot disappear in front of them, or fade out, if you want to call it that, or fade into existence. The footprints end, the footprints begin out of nowhere. There's been cases, especially in the early 1970s here in Pennsylvania, where Bigfoot was sighted in the same approximate area as a UFO, either at the same time or one before the other. And that's happened. There's been multiple cases here documented in the 70s, but there's so many different theories about what Bigfoot is. And to be honest with you, I don't honestly know. I tend to lean towards it being a flesh and blood animal that may have some developed abilities to adapt to its environment that we just aren't familiar with yet. Right. In other words, it may be able to cloak itself based on the color of its fur, blending in so well with its surroundings that it looks like a tree, or it looks like a bush, or it may drop down and look like a tree stump, where people said it was there and it's just gone, but it's still there. You just think it's a tree stump now. So I think they have some kind of ability where they're smart enough to know their environment and their surroundings so well that they can blend in and simply vanish. So, but there are people that talk about them having the ability to literally cloak themselves invisible, and so you can no longer see them, walk in between dimensions, in and out, which I have no idea how they could possibly do that, because no animal that we're aware of on this planet has that ability.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of different theories about what this thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, this is where I've sat on that whole subject for a while, and my partner in crime that's not here right now, she's a psychic medium, and she truly believes that they're interdimensional creatures. I think Dominic Santasario, that's in the chat room, believes that too. But I'm a skeptical investigator, so it's like I always need more. So, like, putting myself in your shoes, I would be in the same place. Right. We don't know enough about it to say, hey, this is definitive. We do have a question here from Patricia. She wants to know, do you think that they hibernate like bears?
Well, unfortunately, there's not enough evidence to support that they do hibernate. Again, going back to researchers, there's a variety of different opinions. There are researchers that speculate they spend their winters underground, and not necessarily hibernating, but spending it underground where it's a little warmer, and they build up food and water and everything, and they take it underground. They survive through the winter underground. Whether if you want to call that hibernation, that's your call. But I don't specifically think that they hibernate, because there have been sightings during the winter months I think the reason the sightings go down during the winter months is because there's not a lot of people out in the forest as there is during the spring, summer, and fall months. So I think that's the reason for the decline. But I don't necessarily think they hibernate. I think, if anything, they may use caves and underground territories to spend some time keeping warm and surviving cold winters.
And see, to me, that's logical. I mean, that's, that would be like normal behavior. To me, thinking about what they would do in the wintertime versus the spring and summer. And because us as humans, we don't really go out in the snow. I mean, very few, we all like to stay where it's really warm and we have a campfire or a fire in the house or whatever,
Right.
Yeah, Dominic definitely put in here. He thinks it's dimensional in his opinion, which is cool. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Let me see here. I just don't want to skip anybody because, like last week, we ended up not getting to everybody's questions. Joe Chase says, I seen one walking south shore of Lake Ontario. It was full moon. We saw it clear. It was walking along water areas called Long Pond, where they used to run. So that's pretty cool. I mean, and we've had, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with Whitehall, New York, because that's the main place. But I mean, I recall several like articles as well as on TV where somebody has said that they have, come across the Bigfoot print, or, especially near lakes here in New York. And I would believe that's because of not just the water, but also because of fish, the food, because the animals come there to actually, drink. So the deer and all that stuff. So there's a lot of speculation on what they eat. But from what I've also seen is that deer is a popular food for them, pig, and then fruit, all types of fruit, apples, berries, all that stuff. Is that the norm that researchers find when they're, looking for him or her or Bigfoot itself? Is that's what they're thinking is their main food source?
Well, an animal that large, if they do indeed exist, needs a very high caloric diet.
Okay.
And as humans, we can survive on what I believe it's 12 to 1,500 calories a day. Anything less, you can become sick. Anything more, you can become overweight and very heavy. Right. So we speculate that these animals, if they're twice the size of us, would need at least 2 to 3, maybe 4,000 calories a day. That's a lot of food.
Yeah,
and you're not going to get that from eating berries and nuts and vegetation. You need a very wide variety of diet to obtain that much calories. So we guess and speculate that their diet's very much like a bear, an omnivore. I call them opportunists myself because anything that they can and eat and find to eat, they will eat. They've been reported seeing, as you mentioned, pigs and deer, domesticated animals, dogs and cats, fish.
That's a new one for me. Domesticated.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
Yeah. Well, dogs have disappeared from people's properties where there's been Bigfoot present. So
yeah. Okay.
Shellfish, berries, fruits, nuts, vegetation. There's even been reports of these things seen around city and public garbage dumps, foraging for food, climbing in dumpsters, going through garbage, foraging for food. So they obviously will eat whatever they can. I think they prefer a more natural diet, like fruits and vegetables, corn, especially corn. If there's corn growing, they're going to be around the cornfields. If there are animals such as deer abundant, they're going to hunt like other animals do.
Right.
They need their protein, they need their food, they need their high caloric intake. So their variety of diets is really going to play a big factor into what they eat and what's available, of course.
Right. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense for me. Hello, Scarborough Sasquatch Station. They're also they were just put in here that fungi is a main diet food for them. So where do we, like, this is going to sound really like weird, but these are all assumptions, of course, so I would think that they would have, like, going back to the whole thing of teaching their young, pretty much that they know from passed on from generation to generation what's healthy, what's not healthy, what's bad for them, what can make them sick, and so on and so forth. But that brings me to the garbage dumps. I mean, people are wasteful. We waste a lot of food all the time. So to me, yeah, that makes sense. Any like any information like with one of the people here in the chat room actually brought it up about there was a video of a Bigfoot fighting a bear. Because I guess my thought is going here is if they're an animal, I don't think they're going to waste anything. So if they fight and kill something, if it's edible to them, they're going to eat it, right?
It's very possible they could, yes. And there's been a lot of talk about that Bigfoot and bear fighting video. It's a black and white video. And actually, if you watch Bigfoot, The Unforgettable Encounter, I believe it was in the 1990s it came out. It had the kid from Home Improvement in it. Okay. That clip was taken from that movie and decolorized and put in black and white. So a lot of people misidentified that clip as an actual Bigfoot and bear fighting. But if you go back and watch that movie, that was taken from that film.
Oh, see, there you go. I mean, you guys, you can't trust what you're seeing on YouTube, guys. Sorry.
if that's in fact what he's talking about, that's been a very well passed around video in the Bigfoot circles, and people seem to think that that's a legitimate film, and it's not.
Right. Okay. All right. Little bit here. She was asking, so a Bigfoot would kill people? I don't think there's ever been any cases of that, has there? That we know of?
There's been some documented cases of Bigfoot killing people over the years. It's very rare that it happens. And I think if it does happen, it's more of a defensive mechanism, or it could be, I mean, we have mangy bears. We've got bears with, and all kinds of animals with rabies and diseases that can turn them on people. And if they become desperate for food, they might. Who knows? People disappear in the forest all the times. But I mean, we don't know if they really truly kill people or not. I mean, people disappear all the time, and some people speculate that that's why people disappear, is Bigfoot's responsible. But there's been a handful, if that. The Teddy Roosevelt case of Bauman the Trapper from the 1850s, that, you know, he supposedly, according to the trapper, his research partner had his neck broken by a Bigfoot.
Ooh. So,
I mean, it could happen. I can't say it doesn't, but there are not many, if more than a few cases of that actually happening that we're aware of.
All right. Joe, I actually want to, it's good that you brought this up. A lot of people do disappear in the parks every year. And a lot of that, we can't just, say that it's Bigfoot. I mean, there are a lot of people that fall down, gorges and, all that stuff. So is that a possibility? We don't know. We don't have enough information to tell you, but it could be. I mean, we've heard stories. I'm pretty sure you probably saw the documentary where, Eric, that there was a documentary about Bigfoot breeding with female humans. And, basis of truth, probably none, because watching that documentary, they couldn't find DNA that supported that. So I think, hello, Christy London from Where's My Sage? Another a WLFE show. I guess for me, it's like, I am just so fascinated with this creature, just like I think most researchers are, even though it's not my field, not my expertise, in any way, shape, or form. I don't know enough about him. But I can tell you that I had a somewhat of an experience. I was with a Bigfoot researcher, and it kind of makes sense because it was a cornfield where the corn is, and it was freshly plowed under. But if they're there, normally when the corn is there, I'm assuming they would eat corn too. I mean, why not? Deer do, coons do, everything does. Jesus, I can't even talk, like I said. But when we were walking the sideline of where the field was, and then there was woods and swamp on the other side to where we were walking, so cornfield, swamp. And where we were going, we came up to a bend, and something, I will tell you definitively, in my mind, I did not hear 4, legs hitting the water. It was 2. It was bipedal for sure. and it just took off running. There was no sound, just heavy running. I mean, does that sound, familiar at all?
Well, people have reported hearing bipedal running before. Yeah, it's not uncommon. This is just my opinion, but unless you see the animal actually running, even deer can sound like they're running on two legs.
Yeah.
Running, depending on the terrain and the ground and the condition of the ground and leaves. And there's a lot of factors that really can attribute to whether it sounds bipedal or a quadruped.
Right.
I've seen bear running through the forest with my own eyes, and they're quiet as a mouse. You can't hear them running at all. So I guess it would depend on the situation, but there have been people saying that I've heard the heavy bipedal footfalls, one foot in front of the other, running through the forest or coming up on my tent or whatever. Right. So that people have talked about that before.
Yeah, it was kind of, I mean, we were there because of a sighting, and I do get them rarely, footprints, I guess, have been discovered there as well. So kind of 2 + 2, you know what I mean? Sure. One of those things. So let's see here. Yes, and hello, Scarborough again. Here's a question from Eric. Is there more crossing roads seeing Bigfoot or in the woods sightings?
That's really hard to answer. I've never gone through all the road crossing sightings versus in the forest sightings. I think probably I'd have to say more in the forest. I think people have to be in the right place at the right time to have a Bigfoot run across the road. So I would say more in the forest than there are road crossing sightings, but I don't know the actual numbers of either one, to be honest. That's a great question, but I think you would have to be literally at the right place, the right time, traveling the right speed, and having that creature at that right moment run across the road in front of your vehicle.
Right.
I just don't think there's enough of them that typically we see deer or we hit deer with vehicles or there's a lot of accidents like that. They don't happen quite as frequently as that, obviously, but they do happen.
Right. They say thanks. It kind of goes back with me on this is that like Pennsylvania to New York, though the states are close together and the weather and the terrain and all that stuff is very similar. I would think that like from Whitehall, New York to say the state of Washington, where that's like the place for Bigfoot, the terrain would be different. The things that they eat would be different. The way that they do things would be a little different. I don't think it would be necessarily the same. So I think that would affect how they're being seen as well, maybe.
It could, but you'd be surprised at how very similar the terrain is. You're dealing with a lot of deciduous pine. You're dealing with a lot of ferns and forest cover. Here in the East Coast, we have a lot more rhododendron than they do out west. They have a lot more older trees, older growth forest out in the west than we do here on the East Coast.
Right.
And I think that's mainly because the East Coast is more populated than the West Coast. But there's a lot of similarities, especially where you mentioned from Whitehall, New York, going north into the Adirondacks. Those are some pretty wild and very, very difficult terrain to traverse. I mean, it gets pretty rugged up there. And I've been in both. I've been in Washington State, California, Oregon, and I've been up in New York. And they're very, when you see them and you're out there and you hiked one, you can compare them a lot of ways to the other one.
Okay. I know that my first experience with going to the Adirondacks was, and I was there one day and I saw my first bear. I mean, I was like, wow, I never thought I would, you know what I mean? It was one of those things, but yeah, you do. And Barry, yes, I did put the answer in there. It's like where I saw or heard, I should say, that was not near Lake Ontario whatsoever. Quite far away from it, to be honest with you. It's actually closer to the Nunde area, where recently we've been having a lot of sights from, and I think that's because it's not. It's got a population of people, but it's kind of more like crops and cows and stuff like that. It's not a very heavily populated area. A lot more woods. Going back here. I believe he's saying, have you ever offered fruit, tobacco, and trinkets to them? They might leave you something in return. They love flashy stuff. So does a crow. Sorry, that's my
Yeah.
answer. But you throw something shiny down, the crow's going to love it anyway. So
I have not offered any kind of trinkets or bait. When I first got in this many years ago, we would bait areas and put game cameras out in hopes of getting pictures, but we got a lot of pictures of crows, raccoons, squirrels, just typical common wildlife, foxes, coyote occasionally. So it really seemed we were wasting our money on putting food out there when we weren't getting pictures of what we hoped for. So we stopped baiting. And another reason I stopped baiting was, and a lot of researchers don't keep this in mind, and I try to warn them, if in fact you are baiting a Bigfoot, let's say hypothetically, you're baiting an area and a Bigfoot comes in for food and you start giving them food on a regular basis, and this becomes your research area or your habituation area, if you will. The moment you stop leaving food for the Bigfoot, that Bigfoot's going to get pissed.
Yeah.
Because it wants food and it's grown accustomed to having food given to it. If you stop giving it trinkets or gifts and you piss that Bigfoot off, then that ends your research area. They're going to leave. They're not going to come back anymore. Or they might be aggressive and be pissed at you because you stopped feeding them bacon.
Yeah.
So I don't advise anybody to bait for Bigfoot. It's just not a good idea.
That's sort of like that whole thing with the conservation says don't feed the animals, don't feed the bear and stuff like that. I mean, it just to treat them as an animal, that's my thought, when you were saying
Mine too.
Treat them as an animal. Yeah. You don't want the issues. We're going to go to Scarborough's. Do you believe that Bigfoot may use fire? I mean, I have seen that people have claimed that they have smelled smoke and seen a light in a cavern and stuff like that. But what's your take?
I don't personally think they use fire. I just my opinion. I don't think they have that high of an intelligence to use fire. I mean, they very well could. We just don't know. I don't know of any cases where people have actually seen them carrying a lit torch or building a fire or any of that sort. But
if all you
first
got
time for everything
accounts, and you haven't had that many accounts of like one or two, I mean, how can you base anything on that? I mean,
it's not something common that's reported.
Right. Don's got a great sense of humor too. He says, "I would leave trinkets for bacon."
Yeah, me too, Don. I like bacon, so.
Yeah, me too.
But then again, I'd probably get pissed if you stopped leaving me bacon. So
he walks up there with the bread, the mayonnaise, lettuce, and tomato, and there's no bacon.
Yeah, I'd be flipping over trees and pushing trees down too. So
yeah, that's
don't bait
crazy.
for me. That's a no.
There has been a lot of shows, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because, there are people that believe and don't believe or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of shows out there about the Bigfoot and the research, and some of them make light of the creature in some cases, and they actually, have, how TV is. And I love the show Finding Bigfoot, but at the same time, it's like, how much do you really want to take from that is true? Or Mountain Monsters is the other one. It's when they started getting into the psychic stuff and, this thing was controlling people with mind control and all this other stuff. I find that far-fetched, but it's not any different than being in the paranormal. We hear things all the time. And it's like, why would they use that? Why would they project that out there when we just don't know?
It's, if you really think about it, watching someone sit in the dark woods days on end and nothing happening other than maybe hearing an owl or a coyote can get pretty boring. So you need to continue to draw ratings. You need to continue to get people watching the shows. So you have to sprinkle in there some interesting little tidbits for people to keep coming back. It may not be a Bigfoot that they heard howl, or it may not be a track that they found, but you've got to put that little bit out there, that teaser out there that keeps people coming back to watch it. Otherwise, Finding Bigfoot would have ended after like 2 or 3 shows if they really truly showed what Bigfoot research is like. Same with paranormal research. I'm a paranormal researcher myself, and I'm sure you can attest how many times we've gone to locations that's been completely dead.
Yeah.
And you sit in that building for hours in the dark and nothing happens. Well, people don't want to see you sitting in the dark for 3 or 4 hours and nothing happening. They're going to turn the channel. So you have to have that element of suspense and building tension and anticipation. And shows like Mountain Monsters and even Finding Bigfoot are great for that, because they provide just enough to keep you intrigued to see what's going to happen next week with the guys, the Mountain Monster guys, the Ames team. I'm very, very good friends with all 6 of them. Well, unfortunately, Trapper passed, but I'm good friends with all 5 of them, and I communicate with them frequently. And they're great guys, but a lot of people hate the show, and they think it's all fabricated and all fictional. And it very well might be. I've never really gone down that path with those guys, but if it were a show of just Bigfoot researchers going out and walking through the woods, that's all it would be, just walking through the woods, and no one would watch it.
And you know, that's it does get I don't know how many times, and I'm sure you've gotten to that point too, how many times you hear somebody claim, like on the paranormal side, oh, it's a demon. It's like, oh my God, I'm so tired of hearing things like that, you know, especially since we have no proof. You know, it's funny because you know, people make light of everything that we research, whether it be Bigfoot, UFOs, or the paranormal. But if it wasn't for us trying to find answers or come up with something, we wouldn't be any closer. And we're really not. But I mean, somebody's got to do it, right?
Right. Yeah, as long as you have the tolerance and the patience to do it, because as we just talked a few minutes ago, there's been many boring nights, cold, snowy nights, rainy nights, windy nights where I've sat in the forest in all kinds of environments and just thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing here?
Right.
Why am my wife's at home, my kids are at home. You know, I could be laying on the couch watching Mountain Monsters or watching Finding Bigfoot, but here I am out in the freezing snow, you know, 6 inches of snow, 30 degrees outside. I'm freezing. And what am I getting from it other than a cold?
Right.
So, I mean, unless you have patience and tolerance and the real desire to continue to do it week after week, then
I
really
think
not worth it.
I think that's why, especially in the paranormal, there's so many teams that don't last very long. It's because people just get, my God, we've been here how many times, and we've gotten nothing. They get bored and stuff like that. But you know, experimentation, the desire to be there, the will to really have this, you know, as a part of your life it can be taxing sometimes. But you know, if you're really into it, you got to take that with the rest of it, you know.
You take the good with the bad. Yep.
Yeah. Scarborough says, thanks, Eric. Thanks, Ted. Yes, only have heard a couple of times of fire being used. Don Black with a sense of humor again. Haha. They might get mad, but you could say if you keep baiting them, you could always say, don't pick on me. I have a 10-foot furry friend, and you're not afraid to use them. Robert White from Australia, sounds like ghost hunting. Now, Australia has their own Bigfoot type creature as well.
Yes, the Yowie.
The Yowie, yeah.
Very aggressive, very dangerous type of creature. That one's been known to aggressively go after people, not necessarily hurt or kill them, but to be more aggressive and territorial. If you approach it, it's not a happy creature.
Yeah. Sounds like the mountain gorilla. You know how they stand off people and they charge people to, you know, instill fear so that they go away. Yeah, sounds, you know, part of that whole thing with Don. He says, "Yeah, just tied up your enemy to the offering spot." Nice.
I have a few of them. I'd like to do that too.
Yeah. Robert White states, paranormal research, sitting in a building or out in the woods talking to furniture or trees for hours on end. I have a saying, Robert, that my job is this. I go into dark houses and I sit on the floor and I talk to furniture. That's my job.
Yep. I talk to trees.
There you go.
Or owls, one of the two.
Yeah. Don comes back again and says, "Hey, I'm from Kentucky, where Trapper is from. Seen a dogman." No, that's a good point. There's a lot of misrepresentation or, you know, people seeing my misidentification of dogman versus Bigfoot. Some people believe they're the same. Some people believe they're different. What's your take on that? I mean, I'm pretty sure, you've had to run across the dogman sighting with a Bigfoot at some point, right?
Well, I've had several dogman encounters reported to me, and their description of what they've seen, what they claim they've seen, definitely sounds like an upright walking canid, not necessarily a Bigfoot.
Oh,
My opinion is that they're misidentifications of Bigfoot, either skinny or a lanky, very thin Bigfoot, and that's what they're seeing. But people that I've talked to that have claimed they've seen this swear that this thing has a snout where a Bigfoot doesn't have a snout. It has pointed ears, much like a canine, where Bigfoot doesn't have pointed ears, or a tail. And of all the reports I've documented or heard of or studied, I've never heard Bigfoot having a tail. So there are obvious differences between the two, but just my personal opinion that people are misidentifying what they're seeing. They're catching a glimpse of it and thinking, oh my gosh, that was a dog, upright walking dog, or a wolf or whatever, and it truly was a Bigfoot that they saw. But who knows? I wasn't there in their shoes to see what they experienced.
Right. And folks, this like we said in the beginning of our conversation, these are all based on eyewitness reports or by what little evidence is left behind that researchers can speculate on. It's the same with us searching for ghosts and all that other stuff. It's all based on eyewitness reports. And so there's a percentage of it. And you guys know that I always say here that in every story that you hear, there's an ounce of truth, and it's up to you to figure out what that truth is. That's something that I say here on a regular basis. And that stems from the fact that some of our nursery rhymes and lullabies and stuff like that actually were events that happened, but they turned them into something for our youth or a tale or whatever the case may be. So we're just taking a little bit of that that's in there, that's the truth, and it's being passed on through these other things. So just remember that any story that you take or you hear, it's up to you what you believe, and finding that truth is going to be on you. What is the truth that you take out of it? So when you're watching these shows or you're listening to someone speak about whatever, Bigfoot, UFOs, whatever, remember that they don't have 100% of anything. It's pure speculation. It's what they believe off of the information that they've collected, and that's it. Because we don't have DNA, we don't have
That's
we don't
exactly
have
right.
Bigfoot, right? Oh, did you freeze up on me, Eric? Eric, if you can hear me, you may have to. Oh, there you are. Jeez, you froze up on me. I was like, that was a pretty good job of just standing still. But we do not have DNA for Bigfoot, right?
Well, there has been DNA collected over the years from a variety of different sources and locations that really doesn't match with anything in the known database.
Okay.
But they can't say that it's Bigfoot because there's nothing to match it to. There's been samples that have come back in certain situations that have matched very close to primate DNA, chimpanzee or gibbon or orangutan. It's so close that you could almost say that animal is existing in that area when in fact there are no native animals. And there's no native chimpanzees running around in Kentucky or Tennessee unless they're an exotic pet that escaped. And,
right.
and those are very rare circumstances. They do happen, but the DNA that's been collected over the years, I guess the point I'm trying to make is it can't be identified as to what it is because we don't have a known strand on hand to match it with and compare it with. So all we have are unknown samples. And until we have a live specimen or a dead specimen that we can go and extract DNA from and know that that's definitely a Bigfoot and then match all those other samples, we can't say that we have Bigfoot DNA.
Oh, perfect. I love that Don and Robert from two different countries. In fact, they're going back and forth with a little comedy here, which is great. Keep Minute Live. He's like the sound made when it steps on your foot. Yowie. And Don puts up here, and I was going to bring some of these up: the Yowie, Yeti, Skunk Ape, Midnight Whistler, and so on and so forth. There is a lot of different names out there, which we actually talked about earlier. I just had a friend that is a Bigfoot researcher that was in Florida investigating the skunk ape. And from what he had told me is that one of the biggest things is they just smell horrid. They really do stink. And I think that's why they got the name skunk ape. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen any reports of a Bigfoot in a stream or lake washing. Have you?
Yeah, there have been reports.
Oh, really?
Right? Yes. Where they're seen washing their face or their hands and stuff like that. Not necessarily a full-on bath, but they're
Right.
splashing water on themselves. There's been documented cases over the years where people have stumbled across them. As a matter of fact, the famous Patterson-Gimlin film that everybody's familiar with, when
Right.
Roger and Bob rounded the deadfall tree that was down, Patty was actually squatting in the creek. And
Oh.
they were thinking maybe she was washing herself, and she became startled when she heard the horses. The horses reared up, and that's when she walked away. So she was actually in the creek bank and almost at a squatted position.
That's interesting. Yeah, see, that part I didn't hear. So I learned something today. Cool. Don's got a lot of stuff in here. He was talking about basically a sighting, I believe, of a werewolf. It was in Tennessee on the interstate. If it stood up, it would be 8 or 9 foot tall, ornery and eating a dead deer. Okay. I wouldn't want to mess with that, to be honest with you. No way. He's saying it had a great big head and kind of slender and snarling. Yeah, I think that's more of an animalistic trait of, this is my food, back off. So you definitely don't want to approach anything like that. No
Right.
way. That'd be crazy. Mr. David Seiler. Hello, sir. How are you? He is from Step Into the Paranormal. Nice to see you on here. Let me see if I can get to see what else they got here is in questions, because I don't want to leave these guys out. Dominic says, because he's in Florida, he says he's very familiar with a skunk ape. Apparently smells like stagnant muck. Oh, awesome.
Well, if you think about it, Florida's a very hot and humid state,
Right.
especially if you get into the swamps and the Everglades where it's supposedly seen. An animal covered with hair or fur and walking around through that muck and mire all day long is going to stink.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah. As far as I know, they don't have Bigfoot shampoo, but that's probably why they smell as bad as they do. Is
Hey,
because
they do have soap now. They have Sasquatch
They
soap.
do,
I've
yes.
seen it.
I don't know if it's necessarily for Sasquatch, but yeah, if they are truly running around the Everglades and the forest and the swamp areas, then they're going to become a product of their environment. They're going
Right.
to be out in that thick muck and mire and gunk and all day long. And so that stuff's going to get into their fur and especially when it's dry and not so humid, it's going to dry and it's going to be compacted mud.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't surprise me they have these really funky
Well,
smells to them.
to add to that, as I think about us as like myself, I'm 6 foot, I'm 280 pounds. I mean, you get me in really hot weather and I stink. You know what I mean? So it's like, keep that in mind. So stay away from me when I'm in Florida. Oh my goodness. Robert says, well, I doubt they have access to soap and smelly stuff to perfume themselves. Correct.
And they might have their own like home shopping network.
Yeah.
They can buy all this luxury fragrances and eau de la Bigfoot.
There you go. Don says, boy, what I would give to talk to Eric one-on-one. We could have a great conversation. That's cool. Scarborough comes back. I went too far. Yes, seen Pacific Northwest on a river with Sasquatch washing up. And apparently they have video. Love to see it. So would Eric. I'm just throwing that out there,
I'm not a voyeur. I'll just put that out there.
There you go. Dominic says, a bus driver I know seen a Bigfoot run across the road. It changed his view of thinking. I think that when you see something you cannot identify and it's huge, hairy, I think, unless it's like some guy that hasn't shaved in forever or has got that what's that? John, do you know what that disease is, or what they call it, where you have hair all over your body and it's just off the top of your head? Because I can't think of it. They're born with it. Not the top of your head. Yeah, because that's where the werewolf thing came from back in the day. Was these people were just born with naturally ton of hair all over their body. It is some type of disease, I believe. Barry Marsh says, would skunk ape bite a little? Wait a minute. Would skunk ape? I'm not sure what you're saying here. I'm thinking be a little lighter version in weight of the northern Bigfoot. Well, I believe from what people had said that it's more of an orangutan type looking creature. It's smaller in height, and it is smaller. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I believe too that they said that it was more like a reddish hair or something.
Yes, it's a typical reddish or brown. Yes.
Yeah. Hypertrichosis. Awesome. Thank you, John. That's the producer. Big John. Big Bad John. Yeah. Let me get down here. Bigfoot shaver shops are needed. Thanks, Robert. Don is saying, what about Rougarou in Louisiana? Hey, that's a Dogman sighting, I believe, more than it is Bigfoot, correct? I mean, the
the werewolf, the Louisiana werewolf.
Yeah. Oh, Don. I will put this up there just because I think it's funny too, but he's like, imagine the dingleberries. Stuck to the front.
Yeah, that would be yeah.
That would be terrible.
We'll just leave that.
Beautiful cat, by the way.
Oh, thanks. She's annoying. She wants to be on TV too.
There you go. Don was saying, when I saw the Dogman, I'm about poop my pants. I believe that's what most people would do. They would have some type of, I don't know. I think if I really saw a Dogman or a Bigfoot like close up, I would probably, I'd probably shit my pants. Definitely.
I think a lot of people would.
Yeah. Dominic says he described it as an extremely fast and over 8. It was extremely fast and over 8 foot. He said it was fast like lightning. So, Robert, look at you go. Hypertrichosis, sometimes called werewolf syndrome. Look at that. Robert's got you too, but you beat him there, John. He's like, cool. Yes, orangutan. Can't even talk. I'm telling you. Where's Cindy? Yes, an orangutan. I'd rather see Bigfoot. LOL. There you go. Some of the things about Bigfoot that other things that really interest me is that they don't come across, especially here in New York, from what we heard in stories, they're not aggressive. They're definitely just trying to run away from humans. And I would think that if anybody had a sighting of, like, I remember an episode, I believe it might have been Finding Bigfoot, where a woman lived way out in like Tennessee or something in the hills, Ozark maybe, where she lived in a trailer, and she was claiming this thing was like reaching the top of her trailer as in height. And I'm not sure how tall a trailer is, but that's got to be at least 13 feet. So I don't think they're aggressive when things like that happen. I think they're more inquisitive. I mean, they're more, curious, right? I mean, I think they have a curious nature anyways. I mean, that's like stories that I've heard.
That seems to be the behavioral trend, is that they're more curious than they are angry with us or
right.
Showing aggressive behaviors. I think the aggressive behavior comes out based on territory, based on food source. If you're encroaching on their young or their habitat, then they might display an aggressive behavior. But for the most part, I think they are looking to try to figure us out and try to understand us better, to avoid us, because the majority of sightings are happenstance, where person A happens to be in the right area. Bigfoot A happens to be in the right area. They come across each other, and person A goes one direction, Bigfoot A goes the other direction. So it's usually that fleeting glimpse, and both parties are running off in the different directions. Or the party A, the person, is pooping his pants while the Bigfoot's running away. So, I mean, that seems to be the majority of the encounters. Like we did talk a little bit, there have been aggressive encounters reported over the years, and I think that's based on a variety of factors if they come into play. But I don't think it's necessarily an aggressive animal.
And the reason for bringing that up is I don't want people to think that, like, because we've had a couple comments, especially from Little Bit. I don't want you going out there thinking that this creature is necessarily violent or aggressive, but we, definitely don't, pet it, try to pet it. I mean, you don't want to do that. What's that, John? Yeah, look at our own nature. Exactly. Look at what we do with things. And your cat is fantastic. She was like behind your head the whole time. Your head came out a little bit, and it was great. Don says it is said that in ancient times that there was a race of human creatures that look like men with dog heads. I have seen that. A lot of the research I did with ancient Egypt had a lot of that stuff. So who knows? I mean, there have been cave sightings, and we know that the native Indians had said that Sasquatch has been around for ever, and they've had dealings with them. So this is not a new creature. This is something that's been around for a long time. Barry has a question for you, which is great. Eric, do you know cryptozoologist Brian Seach of Beaver County?
Yes, I know who Brian is. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Cool. So we're going to, if you're okay with it, we're going to take a quick break and then come back, guys. Please get your questions together again. I'm loving this conversation, Eric. Thank you so much. I mean, you're giving me the opportunity to, spout off at the top of my head some things that I've always wondered myself, which is great. So I'm really loving it. And so, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I'm going to run one, and then you're going to run one. All right, we'll be right back.
For one-of-a-kind handmade jewelry, G by the Sea is an online store that offers handmade sea glass jewelry. Each piece has been hand-selected off the beaches of Galveston, Texas, and the shape has not been manipulated. Visit us at gbythesea.com for unique and handmade jewelry, or email jewelry@gbythesea.com. It's not only a piece of jewelry, it's a piece of history. You're listening to WLFE DB Radio. Now, back to our program.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. We've been sitting here with Mr. Eric Altman. We're talking about Bigfoot. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Okay, because I'm used to hearing something, and that time I didn't hear anything. That was a little bit weird. Okay, that's cool. So we're back to what it was. Eric, you can find him on pabigfoot.com or Society.com. I'm sure he has a Facebook page, and I'm sure there's other ways that he can contact, or you can contact him as well if you have some questions for him. If we don't get to him here on the show, he's been researching Bigfoot for a long time, and he's been able to answer some questions for me, and I think it's fantastic. You know, it's been a long time, since a subject like this has, I think, really took interest in our society. I mean, for the longest time, all you ever heard about was like the Loch Ness monster. It took a while for Bigfoot, other than some of the shows or whatever, to really come to light when more people have become interested in researching Bigfoot. I think there's more now than it's ever been, in the field, and with events and so on and so forth down the line. So, guys, if you're really into Bigfoot and stuff like that, and you happen to be in Pennsylvania, you know who you can contact. The gentleman on the show where you're seeing right now. So definitely just reach out to him if you have any questions, like I said, and if you're really interested in the research and so on and so forth. All I'm going to say to you is do like we do here when it comes to the paranormal. Educate yourself, start reading books, visit people, go to the events. I'm sure now, because of the pandemic, Eric, there's going to be the events are coming around.
Slowly but surely, they're starting to come back. I would say probably in the fall, maybe into 2022, you'll start to see them come back the way they were.
Yeah. Yeah, because we used to have a lot of them, but this pandemic has screwed up so much, Don has, he says, my idea is that they have evolved from an ancient species of ape to what they are now. I think you're not the only one that thinks that. I believe a lot of other people believe the same thing. I tend to believe that more so than it's a creature that can go through portals and comes down with UFOs. I mean, you guys know we've had this debate with Cindy before, where she goes, "Oh, they're interdimensional creatures that the aliens brought them here to babysit the humans and blah blah blah." Well, if they're babysitting the humans and they're supposed to be our babysitters, they're doing a shitty ass job. Yeah, they're watchers. There you go. There you go. So yes, guys, you can also say hi to Big John. He is here. We do have him. That is true.
I'm not really here.
Okay, he's not really here. He's invisible. That's why we call him Invisible John too. So, Robert says, I'm getting concerned about Cindy. Yeah, me too, because she said she was going to be here, so I'm not sure with that either. Now, since we do not have a body or anything like that, in your opinion, what is it going to take? To me, it's a body. I mean, because people claim all the time, there are no bones. We don't have mounds where the family that's passed has been buried that we know of anyways. I mean, but to satisfy that curiosity, what would it take?
Well, I think it depends on whose perspective you're asking that question about.
Okay.
If it's the scientific community, then yes, it's going to be nothing more than a live or dead specimen. That's the only way. DNA is not going to prove anything at this point, because we mentioned earlier, we have DNA, we just don't have anything to match it to. Right. So the only way that we're going to be able to say definitively to the scientific community that they are real is by presenting a Bigfoot on a slab so that they can dissect it and tear it apart and study it, or actually capturing one and then live releasing it with a radio tag or some way to track it and study it in its natural environment.
Right.
To the people that have seen a Bigfoot, they know it's real, so you don't have to prove anything to them. You don't have to say, maybe it's real, but they know that they saw it. To the skeptic, again, it has to go back to science and what the scientific community wants. To the believers who think it's real, then all they need to do is have a couple of experiences, whether they see it or not, hear something in the woods, find some tracks, and that's enough proof to them to declare the Bigfoot is real. So right. It's all a matter of perspective.
Right. And for you?
I'm more of a skeptical researcher than I am a true believer. I need to see this thing with my own eyes to say, right. Yes, it is in fact real, or have a specimen on a table that I can poke with my finger and touch and, to know that it's real. I've had some pretty harrowing encounters over the years that really left me questioning what I saw or what I heard or what I found. But it's not enough to prove to me that it was a Bigfoot. It just leaves me scratching my head that I experienced something unknown or unusual. And until I have that defining moment where I watch it walk off the pages of legend and lore into the forest right in front of me, then I'm always going to have my doubts.
Right. Right. And I'm the same way when it comes to this side of the paranormal. I mean, I've seen a couple things where I'm just like, did I really see that? Was that? And I beat myself up over it. You know, it's like, was that real?
I've actually tried to debunk myself, if you will. You know, I've heard things and people said, you heard of Bigfoot. And I'm like, no, it's got to be something else. It had to be a 10-foot tall owl or, you know, or a huge grizzly bear in Pennsylvania, which we don't have. You know, I've always tried to rationally explain things that I've experienced that I can't explain. And I think sometimes that's a more of a detractor than it is something positive for me, because who knows, maybe I did hear a Bigfoot or I did find legitimate tracks of a Bigfoot. And I'm just so unwilling to accept it without hard science behind it, hard proof, that I kind of throw all that stuff out the window. And a lot of my research partners and members of my team know that I'm skeptical of a lot of stuff. And when something really does happen, then I get pretty excited. I won't lie to you. I'm like running around and get all geeked out, but then I'll calm down and rationalize things then and spend like the next 6 months trying to convince myself that it was a rabid coyote that I heard howling in the woods.
Yeah. See, for me, I mean, that's the way I think about things. You know, it's like I can be excited over, you know, like what people tell me, but unless for like just me as an individual, I need more. You know, I can't just, it sounds mean, but I just can't take your word for it. You know, I need more. And I guess in my way of believing is that that's the way it should be. You know, so another question
to remain objective. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question from Scarborough says, Eric, what kind of tree do the Bigfoot favor? Do you know if there's such a tree? I would think probably fruit trees or something like that.
Yeah.
Too.
As far as food's concerned, I would think maybe the fruit bearing trees, it would have more of a preference to like apples and
right.
Peaches and pears, stuff like that, maybe. But there's been people that have claimed they've seen Bigfoot eating bark, which I don't know if it's true or not. I don't really know if there's any nutrients in bark, but I mean, who knows?
You said that, John's just back there like, yuck.
No, I'm not a bark person.
Yeah, bark. I don't think there's any nutrients in bark or even vitamins or anything like that. No, I couldn't.
White chocolate bark or dark chocolate bark, then yeah, we'll talk. But when it comes to tree bark, no, I'm good. You can have all that.
Sounds like count me in. He's with you on that one. This is an interesting question because I didn't know there was such a thing. But he says, do they still have a $2 million reward for a Squatch? Do you know about that?
I think those were publicity stunts drawn for tourist attraction and to get people to hunt and fish in their areas. I think Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken, had some kind of reward.
Oh, okay.
There was actually a show called the $10 Million Bigfoot Bounty.
Oh, I do.
Years ago. It had Dean Cain on it as one of the hosts. And I mean,
Richter Riola.
Richter Riola. Richter's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah. Very, very unique individual, Richter.
Yes,
but
he is.
Gotta love him. But yeah, that show was on. There's been other rewards handed out over the years. And as far as I know, no one's ever collected them. I think it's more of a publicity stunt.
Right.
Kind of a tourist attraction type thing. But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You dumb motherfucker. You think the American people are going to give two about Bigfoot?
There he is. And Richter, if you're watching, I love you, buddy. We haven't talked in a while, but
I know. Yeah.
You're out of touch, man.
I am.
I know. I'm a Richter fan myself. I used to talk to him all the time, and since he's moved, we haven't talked that much.
Imaginary forest friends.
Love that guy.
He's quite the talented artist.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Very, very. He did a picture of me years ago when I was actually down on the ground looking at a Bigfoot cast or a track, and a Bigfoot's coming up on me, and I'm like looking over my shoulder, like, Yeah, terrified the Bigfoot was going to get me. So it's an honor to be drawn by Richter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is he on LSD?
I probably am. Yes.
Yeah. Barry March says, I'm a native of the Jefferson County area of PA, but grew up and live in upstate New York presently. What regions of Pennsylvania have had the most Bigfoot sightings?
Well, that's a hard question to answer because a lot of the state have had Bigfoot sightings throughout. I think it's based on where the researchers are that seem to have the higher concentration of sightings because there's someone there to report the sightings to.
Right.
I know I'm from southwestern Pennsylvania. You're in Jefferson. I'm in Westmoreland County, so we're pretty close. Well, you're in New York now, but you lived in Jefferson, so we're pretty close. But there have been reports in Jefferson County, and I spent a lot of time, probably about 10 or 15 years up in Clearfield County, a county over to your east, where I did a lot of research. But southwestern Pennsylvania has a high concentration of sightings. They have for a long time. The northwestern part of the state, up in the Allegheny National Forest and getting up into the state line near New York, Potter County, Warren County, even all the way over into Bradford County, Towanda, Wyalusing. A very dear friend of mine lives over towards the Poconos, has had some Bigfoot experiences up there. Lancaster and York in southeastern Pennsylvania has had their share of sightings along the Maryland state line. Central Pennsylvania, as I mentioned, Clearfield, and even farther south into Gettysburg, down the Mishaw and Caledonia. So there's all throughout Pennsylvania, there's been sightings. It's just a matter of where the researchers are. That's where the sightings seem to build up over time.
I'll be in Gettysburg in August.
Cool. Beautiful place.
Yes, we will. We go there every year for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash.
Nice.
So we go there for that. But yeah. Don Black has a statement here. This is his belief. He says, I don't think we should kill it, but trap it and get data and return it because there might not be too many of them left. It's a good comment. Yeah, hey, we don't know. You could be right.
Grover Krantz made a comment back in the 1970s that I may not necessarily agree with, but he does have a good point. Even if they're on the verge of extinction and we kill one to prove they exist and that wipes up the species, so what? I mean, they're going to be extinct anyways. So even if there's a low population, if we try to kill one to protect it and save it to help rebuild the species, make it an endangered animal, then that might be what needs to happen. Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with him, but that's from a scientist's point of view, that in order to save a species, you may have to take a specimen.
Yeah, sort of like that whole thing of what they say is like the sacrifice of one for the good of the others, stuff like that.
I'm more of the thinking that Don is, that if we can capture one or even put a radio tracker out on, like fishing line across a couple trees or something, that it can get into the fur and remain on the fur, and we can track it that way, or even shoot it with a trank gun or a radio tag gun, then that's the way to do it. So we can tag it and study it live. That's what I would prefer.
Right. Back to Scarborough. Eric, do you research alone or in a group? I do know the answer to this one. Lone encounters with Bigfoot may be possible if right time and place. It's kind of funny because they weren't here in the beginning of the show when we were talking about that stuff. But yeah, Eric did say right place, right time. And I will let him answer your first question.
I've done both. For safety reasons, I don't suggest anybody go out in the forest by themselves, especially if you're going to go unarmed. Because you're not just dealing with the possibility of Bigfoot, you're dealing with other wildlife and other humans, and wrong place, wrong time, it could end up in a very bad situation. So I always recommend safety first. Go out. If you're going to go out with a group of people, a small number of people suffices. 2 or 3, have a buddy with you so that if something happens, you twist your ankle and fall and you can't walk out of the woods, you're screwed. So I would suggest taking a buddy with you, or at least somebody that's going to know where you're at when you're doing your research. I've done both. I've gone out by myself, and I've gone out with smaller groups of people.
Right. And that's sort of like, you guys know that we preach here that maybe I shouldn't have said preach, but we do say here a lot that, never investigate alone. And the reasons are just like what he said. Whether you hunt ghosts or whatever, especially if it's in the dark. You fall, you hit something, you have a heart attack. There's just so many things that could happen. You never want to be alone, no matter what the case is. You really don't. Going to Eric Harrison. Hello, Eric. What's funny is our local Department of Conservation said we didn't have bears in our area within 8 hours of them posting that a picture of a family of bears is in their front yard. So, yeah, I do understand that too. That the point where he's going to is, especially here in New York, we have been told multiple times that certain creatures don't exist, but yet
there they are
of them, and there they are. Yeah, Chupacabra, John. But there's that's something that we're constantly going to have to deal with, and a lot of the conservationists, they have this kind of underlining standard that they have that says we don't tell the public because of fear. We don't tell them because they don't really know or need to know, which I think that's stupid, in some sense, but I do understand why they say it. But there is a street or a road, a back road, and I'm sure that one of you guys have probably seen it as well, that there is road signs now that have Bigfoot on it. That says Bigfoot crossings in certain areas, which is weird, but hey, if that's a lot of them are being seen there and they're putting that up, why not? The only thing that I could think of is a lot of people would want to sit there and park and, try and catch one on camera. That, to me, they should have left them down, but thank you, John. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
That would solve the mystery. I wouldn't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, well, then you'd be bored, right?
Just find the crossing sign, park my truck, and just sit and wait.
There you go. Don Black, back to him. He's been very vocal tonight. Well, a good investigator would debunk everything they could, then try to explain or find other answers that are new or based on data. That's exactly true. That's exactly true. God, this is. If I don't stay on top of these, Eric, they'll run wild here.
There's some great questions and some great comments.
Yeah, I love the interaction that we have with these people. They're just fantastic people. Good night, Eric. Thank you for dropping by. We do appreciate it. It's going back to work. See, when the producer's here, we have a little bit of fun.
He answers the age-old question, do bears poop in the woods?
There you go.
Or do Bigfoot poop in the woods?
There you
go. Only if they have a porta-john.
He's giving you a round of applause for that one. So, Ted, you are off the Richter scale. Yep, apparently I am. Really,
Jesus
Robert?
Jesus Christ!
Robert says that his belief for the Bigfoot is that the Amish probably hide them in all of their barns they build.
You dumb motherfucker!
If you actually came face to face with a Bigfoot, what would you do? Back away or try to communicate with it?
I would probably try to communicate with it or approach it to look at it better, to get as much detail as I possibly could, because I know that's going to be my once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
People think I'm crazy for doing this, but if we're out in the woods and we hear something that I can't identify, or I see a shadow move through the trees, I go after it, whether it's running directly at it or trying to be quiet and stealthy. I go after it. I don't just back away and run the other way.
Right.
Other researchers I've seen do that, or they stand their ground and wait to see what it is. I want to see, so I go.
Yeah, there was an episode with Finding Bigfoot that I remember Matt Moneymaker took off into the woods after something that he saw. Yeah. And then the rest of the team gave him hell. But, I think I would have to be in the same, like if I saw a ghost, if I'm in the middle of there's a ghost comes up on my camera, you're damn straight I'm going to run after it. I want to get as much information, or at least a good visual of it for myself. Right. To say, hey, Robert White is bringing up a point. He says they're trying to rebuild the dino's DNA. Then if the big feets can have DNA gathering, we could make more of them. All right, Robert.
That's plausible.
Yeah.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
You come at the ending of the show with all the
John's having too much fun with those sound effects.
That's John, though.
I'm terrible.
Yeah, that's okay. Barry March says, actually, I'll put it up here for you. He says, thank you, Eric, for your answers for the PA location areas of Bigfoot.
You're welcome.
Don Black. Oh, good point. Well, LOL, they sure didn't do to the Tasmanian tiger or black rhinos any favors, LOL, but that's just me. You know, that was one of them. I think it was the tiger, Tasmanian tiger, where they said that it was extinct, but they actually caught video of them, so they're not extinct. I do believe, though, Eric is completely right, because this is where this is taking us with his comment, is that when it comes to research on a new creature, and, you know, folks, we're finding new things all the time. I mean, they're still finding new fish, there's new birds and all that stuff, that it's not such a far-fetched idea that there's a possibility that Bigfoot could be real, and discovering it sometime down the line. But I do agree that we at least have to tag it, or maybe if we find a dead one somewhere already, you know, dead, maybe we would be able to get DNA or do some testing on, or whatever the case may be. But I am going to say this, that think about you being a Bigfoot for a second. Like we are as humans, would we want to have your family member, you know, on a slab in some, you know, building being researched on and tore apart? No, you know, so I would guess the same way there. So I would think the more humane thing would be to tag it, maybe put it to sleep, and then do the research that way. Definitely would. Yeah, let's see here. I have heard some Bigfoot might actually understand forms of sign language. It was told that they learned some language from the Native Americans. That's not a far-fetched idea either, because I know that with the gorillas and the chimpanzees and everything we're doing, if they are a part of that, I would believe that they would have that capability. What do you think, Eric?
Some primates have been taught sign language. And if they are highly evolved and intelligent enough to understand what the language means and how to interpret it and how to communicate back, then it's a possibility, sure.
Yeah, I would think so, definitely. Barry March, he says, oh, the Invisible John sound effects, I do miss those. There you go, John. Barry March misses you. COVID has kind of screwed us up here, and we don't get to be here very often. Scarborough says, thanks, Ted, for the great show tonight. Well, thank you. And thank Eric for being here, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have this show tonight. So it was great to have him here with us as well. Do they use rabbits to wipe their... I don't know. I don't even want to speculate.
Why not? Poop doesn't stick to the rabbit.
Poop doesn't stick to a rabbit? How do you know that?
You've seen a rabbit with poop all over it?
No, but they have, like, if you've seen a white rabbit with a tail that's kind of orange because they, you know.
I don't think that's where that comes from.
Okay, fine. Barry Marsh says, that is a good question as to why we haven't found any dead Bigfoot around. Well, there's still a lot of speculation. I'm sure Eric can elaborate on that a little more, that we don't know what happens to the dead. You know, we've never found anything.
No, there's a variety of different opinions on what happens to the dead. Some believe that they have a social structure like other primates, where they bury their dead and have some kind of ritual ceremony, like a funeral.
Right.
Some speculate they have an elephant graveyard type of situation, where they go way off into the very dark recesses of the forest, very remote locations, to die in a cave somewhere. I know for a fact, and you probably know this as well, Ted, and so I'm sure the listeners do, but when an animal is either killed in a road crossing situation like a deer, or shot by a hunter, or even dies of natural causes in the forest, that usually within 7 to 10 days, that animal is almost completely decomposed. And that's, the elements will break the animal down. Small forest animals, rodents, scavengers, porcupines, field mice, they come and they chew on the bones, the calcium, they scatter everything. Otherwise, we'd have bones piled up everywhere in the forest if they didn't. So we know that they decompose pretty quickly. And I think if somebody had if somebody had a better chance of hitting the lottery than they actually would finding a carcass of a Bigfoot in the woods.
Oh, that's a good way.
Just my opinion.
Yeah. Patricia puts up here, thank you, Eric, for sharing your knowledge on Bigfoot. Very interesting show.
You're welcome,
Patricia, for stopping by. Yes, we are getting down to that few last minutes, but Eric, I would like to give you the opportunity to, if you'd like to say anything to the people that are listening, something that maybe sits with you that people should know or be aware of with Bigfoot, that the general public doesn't know, or maybe something they should do, or so on and so forth. I'm just going to give you a minute to say whatever you have to say.
Well, if I can offer some advice to people that want to get into the subject matter, I think that you offered some great advice earlier is to educate yourself before jumping in with both feet, because this is a very complex mystery, and it's not just one-sided where we're dealing with a primate. We might be dealing with something much more complex than a primate. So educate yourself, read as much as you can on the subject. Don't be afraid to study all aspects of the mystery. Be open-minded, but be objective about being open-minded. Right. Don't take everything you hear as the gospel truth. And in other words, debunk as much as you possibly can, but don't be closed-minded to the possibility of that actually being the answer to the subject. The whole mystery is an extremely complex mystery. There's so many levels to it. And when I started this even 40 years ago, when I started researching it, I had no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Right.
And it has so many twists and turns, and you hear so many speculative ideas and thoughts and concepts and beliefs that if you wanted to really follow it, you could end up completely on a different trail than when you first started. So it's a very complex. Hello, Cindy. It's a very complex subject. And I just tell people to really keep an open mind, but also remember to remain objective, and remember to not just buy into everything you hear, because there's a lot of garbage that has to be sorted through and sifted through to get to the truth.
I was like, what is that behind him?
It was just cute. He just popped his head up, meowed, and went down. It was like cute as hell.
It's my ferocious little friend.
He's so cute.
I'd like to add to that people remember that there's a great possibility they're just animals. So please be careful. I mean, be mindful of that. And, don't set out bacon. Don't do it.
Unless you're hoping to attract me.
Right. Because I'm going to be right there.
Me too. I love bacon.
Yeah. Or Cadbury eggs. Cindy?
There's another winner. Don's got my vote.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, Don Black. Hi, Don. Oh, God. Don can do some things to a Cadbury egg.
There you go. And Robert says, where's your tardy note, Cindy?
Please forgive me.
We've been having a great time.
I know,
wanted,
I'm sad. I missed it.
But you know what? I'm glad you're here, because you at least get to say hi to Eric and meet Eric, because we have had a great conversation as far as I'm concerned about Bigfoot. And
I missed it, man. Wait, did you already ask him?
Yes, we already did.
And what did he say? What did you say?
About what?
The question is, go ahead. I'll let you do. I already got my answer. So.
Oh, you're acting awfully smug, I feel. Eric must have liked your side, but that's okay, because more like my theory. So my theory is obviously that that Bigfoot is interdimensional, and I'm curious what you think as well. I see your smart ass.
Well, that's it. As I told Ted, it's a difficult question to answer, because we honestly don't know if it is or not. I don't know. I don't know if there's an animal on this planet that has that ability to leave our dimension and go into another dimension.
I do.
And we haven't scientifically been able to prove that yet. However, there are people that claim they've witnessed the creature doing that. And there are reports that and a lot of belief that it is interdimensional. At this point, we just don't have the scientific technology nor the understanding of how any kind of physical animal would be able to traverse between dimensions.
Yeah. But what do you think, Eric?
That's exactly what I think. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I've talked to many sane witnesses who claimed that they've seen a Bigfoot go from walking across the road and dematerialize in front of them.
Wow.
The people have never had a belief in Bigfoot that have all of a sudden witnessed this. Tracks that suddenly appear or end for no reason.
Yeah.
So there are some compelling arguments for the possibility for it. At this point, unfortunately, there's just not enough evidence to support it.
Did you see what Robert says? He says, for all we know, the reason the footprints stop is it grows wings and flies off like Mothman.
You never know.
That's right.
See what you missed, Eric. You missed her fun and her wackiness the whole time.
I know. I am so sad. Like,
well, we actually had a very calm conversation the whole show. It was very weird.
Very weird that you didn't have me.
Yeah, because you're
so brilliant,
your energy
and sparkly.
Brilliant.
No, my energy is just...
yeah, it's off the wall, but
we'll just have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely,
I think it would be great. I mean, do you know, how do I put this? Like, because you have the PA research, the societies and stuff for Bigfoot. How often does some things come through, like as in the research, like somebody has found something, or not just reports, visual reports, but other things? I mean, do you guys get updates from other societies or groups, or is there a main place that
a main place?
Well, before the advent of social media, there weren't a lot of Bigfoot groups, and we communicated with each other. The researchers communicated and kept in touch with each other.
Right.
Now there's so many, and it's hard to keep track of who's doing what where, and there's really not an open line of communication. Everybody wants to be the first one to solve it, so they don't share things like they used to. The only way we hear about discoveries being made is usually over the news wire or on a website, the news website or something like that. And occasionally the groups that did communicate together, once in a while, we'll still share information with each other. I'm still very good friends with a lot of researchers who've been at this for a long time. So when something pretty significant happens, I'm kept in the loop. Somebody will shoot me a note and let me know.
I don't want you to think I was laughing at what you were saying.
No, not at all.
Comments, because that's my job.
Yeah.
And so Don Black is hysterical. He says, we let Cindy out every now and then from the NLD insane asylum. He has a cell next to me and I share my coloring books with her. LOL, just teasing.
And
Dawn has been a pistol tonight.
Yeah,
he is hysterical.
He has had.
Oh my gosh, he makes me laugh so
well
hard.
Between him and Scarborough, I think it was that they have been asking some great questions.
Yeah,
and
thanks, great
statements.
I
and stuff
appreciate you guys doing
that.
In my absence. Thank you for pinch hitting for me.
That the whole group tonight has been great with questions and staying up to date with all that. They've been really good. I didn't want to get behind, because like last week we got behind with questions.
I know
we didn't get to
really did, and last week it was a really great show too.
Yeah,
and I really am sad that I missed it.
Well, we will bring him back if he wants to come back, like you said.
Cindy stares at me when I eat my Cadbury eggs, though.
Really?
I do. Yes, I have.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, wow, Don.
But we are getting people saying here, like Barry Marcy says, this has been another amazing show tonight. We have had a couple here that say yes, please bring Eric back.
However did you make it without me?
I don't know.
I mean,
either. I even asked John. I mean, Eric's witness. I said to John, come up and play Cindy's role.
I know.
I did.
Oh my God.
I did.
I really thought I was going to come up and see John on my side, but we know he's camera shy.
But John finally
he's going.
When he finally made it here, he started playing, that apparently Eric and I have a mutual friend, Mr. Richter Riolo. So then, John started with the Richter Riolo things that.
Oh, where are your priorities, you stupid SpongeBob SquarePants?
I didn't mean for you to play them. But
that's hysterical though. Oh my God, we haven't used those in so long.
I know.
I can't tell you how much I missed that soundboard.
No, do you? This is probably something I should have asked in the beginning. How often do you do the events, Eric? Like with around in the area, because Pennsylvania is really not that far from where we are right now. We're just below Rochester.
I've organized events off and on now since 1999.
Oh,
I did about 10 years worth of a Bigfoot conference called the East Coast Bigfoot Conference, where we brought in just Bigfoot researchers to speak and lecture. 2011, I worked with Pennsylvania MUFON, and we put on a joint UFO Bigfoot event.
wow.
And then through the mid 2010s into early 2019, I could say 2019 was the last year we did it. We put a charity fundraiser event on called the East Coast Bigfoot Conference. Not the East Coast Bigfoot Conference, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure. I get those two mixed up. But that was more of a charity fundraiser event where we raised some money for some local charities in the area and brought in the big thing that I've been trying to really put out to the public is there's a lot of misnomers and misconceptions in the Bigfoot field. So why don't you come to an event and learn from people that have been doing this for a long time, get out in the field with them, do workshops, hear lectures, really get your hands on and learn from the right people the right way.
That's awesome.
So we did a camping adventure weekend where we would invite the public in. They would hear noted speakers like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Cliff from Finding Bigfoot, some of these guys that came in that have been at it for a while, and they would learn the right way to do things, how to make a Bigfoot cast, how to look for evidence on a Bigfoot hike or a hunt at night or whatever, and the whole process raising money for charities in the local area. So we did about 3 of those now. And we'll probably do another one again in the near future once COVID goes away and we get the funding for it back and stuff. So, but yeah, I've been doing events for 20 years now, off and on.
That's awesome.
Well, if you ever want to come to an event, we actually
come to our event. Well, Teddy's event.
We actually do one. It's called the Rochester Winter Parafest, and we have people that we do it in March, usually at the end of March, and we bring
familiar
from different areas, Bigfoot to UFOs to paranormal and all that stuff. We usually get some great people
fun
up
people
there. Yeah,
you've had my buddy Steve Calls there a few times.
Yes,
actually, Steve and I have.
Steve is a good dude, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with Steve.
Yes,
I've known Steve for about 20 years too. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
In Gettysburg, he's usually there too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We usually I've worked with him a couple times. He came out to Avon Inn too, because he works on the demonology side as well. He's come out and done some stuff there.
And Steve's been at my events as well, many of them.
Well, geez, we haven't.
We'll just have to change that.
There we go.
That's right.
We'll swap.
Just invite ourselves.
We'll swap events. We'll swap events. So that's all. But you know what, Eric? I'm going to say this because we only got a couple minutes. Thank you so much for spending your time here with us.
My pleasure.
I mean, I've had a great time chatting with you, and this nice conversation. He's actually answered some questions for me that I didn't get from other people, and
I love that.
So that was good.
Awesome.
And the people really, our people in the chat really did come up with some good questions tonight, and they stayed involved, which is great, and I appreciate that as well here.
Absolutely.
But Eric, awesome. Let me throw your banner up one more time. Guys, feel free to reach out to him at
Cryptosociety.com.
There you go. And normally you're the one that can talk, and I.
Right. What is it you say? My tongue is in
front of my teeth and can't see what I'm saying. But I was stumbling in the beginning. Ask Eric; he'll tell you.
Cryptosociety.com.
And then PABigfoot.com. So you could, and he's on Facebook. You're probably on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff too, Eric.
Unfortunately, yeah.
There you go. So,
there's 2 of them.
yeah. Okay, guys. So, thank you so much for joining us here, Eric. It's a pleasure. We'll reach out to you again if you'd like to come back.
I'd be happy to, sure.
Just real quick, what is the cat's name?
That's Honey.
Perfect.
Cool. My son's cat. Yeah.
So cute.
Cool.
So is Honey a girl or a boy?
Girl.
Scarborough's still here, and they said thanks, Eric, for amazing answers tonight.
My pleasure.
So that's great. That's great. So,
very awesome.
all right, guys. Well, you know what we do here, Eric. If you need to take off, that's fine. We're just going to end the show here like we normally do, or you can stick around.
Night, guys.
You. Good night. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Eric.
You're welcome. Have a good night, guys.
You too. Thank you. We've had a great night. That's John playing.
What are you doing, John?
He's
We're
doing
not
what
ready yet.
he does. What he does.
Yeah. Did you see my lashes?
Oh, you got those are cow lashes.
You like them?
Holy shit, they're huge. You could catch flies with those. No?
No.
All right, Cindy, so what you got coming up this week real quick?
Tomorrow is Tarot Tuesday.
Yep.
Okay, Taco Tuesday from Teddy.
Yep.
And...
Microphone.
Oh, yeah. What am I doing?
I don't know.
I'm so used to having mine,
I know,
and I don't have
I know,
to do that.
I know.
Okay, so Tarot Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
And then on Thursday, it is Just Cindy podcast.
Yep.
And that is at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
Do I have anything else? Oh, I don't think so.
I don't know, but you and I shared a nice little thing yesterday or Wednesday. Was it Wednesday we got together, or was it Thursday?
When?
What? How fast you forget?
The house was just on Sunday, yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
I was
Jesus.
like, what is he talking
okay,
about?
I'm lost.
How
So
quickly
yes.
he forgets.
Yes.
You know, spending time with me is like just eon Cindy. So
Yeah. No, we did spend a little time together.
We did. We got to see each other yesterday for a few hours.
Warning.
Yes. Yes.
Warning.
We went
Bullshitter
and
alert.
What the fuck? So guess what tomorrow is, you guys? It's John's birthday. So can we sing happy birthday to him really quick?
Sure. You guys want to get involved?
Butt scratcher.
So it is Invisible John's birthday tomorrow.
Yes.
And, you know, they've been great about getting, like, they got me a birthday cake. And now I'm going to have to get one the next one we come up.
No.
and do a
I
belated.
already got him something because he can't have birthday cake because he's keto.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
I did non-keto birthday.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. So, guys, put your happy birthdays in there. And so you're what, 52? 3.
53.
53.
Yeah,
So-
because he's 3 years older than me and you're 4 years older than me.
Yeah. Yeah. Robert White says, Harpy birthday. Harpy Bath Day, Invisible
Harpy
John.
Bath Day.
I like harpies.
Yes. And Barry Marsh says, happy birthday, Invisible John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So,
Saltwater Taffy Taco Tarot Tuesday.
wow, that's way too much to say in one shot.
But I did it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
All right. Happy Hatch Day, John. Congrats for reaching 53. Oh, congrats, but he broke it up.
Congrats.
That's funny. Gets it. Carl Mitchell says, happy birthday, John.
Don, you're so funny.
Yeah, the 50s. You know what that means.
What?
Now, magnetic
Colonoscopy.
vortex
Magnetic vortex resonance.
Yeah.
In the black budget world, we communicate frequently with ethereal beings, Sasquatch, paranormal demonic entities, and many different advanced species. For the average citizen, this is dangerous. It could be, right?
Yeah, we don't know, but it could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for.
So I like that they brought that up in the way of, you know, most people should not mess with things that they don't
know
understand.
about. Correct.
They need to do their research. They need to know and understand.
Educate.
Except they're people.
And
They
understand
do that
what they're getting
I know,
into.
that's a
So
problem.
yeah, I understand and I agree.
All right. So thank you for the comment. We appreciate that. Barry Marsh said that you're 4 years younger than him, and Barry White
And
Robert says you're 5 years older than him.
Very nice.
Nice.
That means Robert is 2 years younger than me.
There you go.
Listen to the complex math going on over there.
Yeah, I know. And Don Black says, let's go party. I can see it if we can get a Bigfoot stripper. LOL.
Oh, boy.
That's hysterical.
Oh,
Don.
you guys
going
are
to answer some
crazy.
questions.
So
There needs to be a Ghost of Monsters book made.
there you go.
Nice.
All right, you guys. So real quick, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
I love you.
There we go. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. You know that, as always, we like to have fun here. And
Yes, go watch Real Talk with Dom.
Dom, he's up next. Yep. Go check that out.
He's already
And-
begun.
Yes, he has, because we were running a little
We
late.
are over.
And next Monday, we have Lisa O'Hara here. She is going to be talking about abductions, and she's pissed off about it.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So it's going to be UFO abductions.
Yes.
Next week.
Fantastic.
So, all right, guys, take care of yourself. And don't forget, wherever there is darkness, there is always
the light.
Thank you for listening to Paratalk Radio with Ted Wolf and Psychic Cindy. Catch us next Monday for another fantastic guest. Please check out our show as well as others on the WLFE DB Radio Network. And remember, like, follow, and share with everyone.
Join us at WLFE-DB.com for upcoming shows and so much more.